Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Horror Analysis with me, Drew, your lovely and talented host. Alright, back to this. Alright. Alright, we're continuing with our discussion of monsterness. The first topic on there. What it means to be a horror, you need a monster, according to Carroll. Which at the moment is what we're working through, and he's the best at this sort of thing for talking about what the most inclusive theory is. Carroll's. He has problems that he has to deal with, but his theory is very good. So we're going to talk more about that. Of course, he's defining monster, any being not believed to exist now according to contemporary science. He also needs the monster to be a threat, and he needs it to be impure. Impurity is through interstitiality, which means being between categories. It's a category mistake, as we talked about last time. So the kind of category mistake that the monster is tells what kind of a monster it is. It's a monster, it's impure because of the category mistake it has. The biologies of horror section talk about what kind of category mistakes there are. Fusion, fission, magnification, massification, and metonymy. Fusion monsters, fission monsters, magnification monsters, massification monsters, and metonymy monsters. Today we're going to go over the easiest two. I'm going to try to reiterate Carroll's point is that the monsters are not fusion monsters or fission monsters or whatever. The impurity is through the category mistake is through these are the category mistake types, rather than monster types. This distinction will be important when I talk about fusion, because I can't get through my thick skull even now that the fusion monsters are certain things. We'll talk about that next time, because fusion monster is going to get a whole video because it's way bigger than this. I'm doing two in one video today, and tomorrow I'm going to be doing fusion monsters, and that's going to be a longer video than today's video. The easiest two to understand are magnification monsters and massification monsters. The first two of the three M's. So 2 F's and 3 M's. That's how if you wanted a mnemonic to remember them, 2 F's and 3 M's. Magnification and massification are the easiest two. We're going to jump into the easiest of them all, magnification. Magnification monsters are see, I have it there. The magnification category mistake is monsters are naturally big, giant, or magnified. Take any creepy, gross thing and make it 20 stories tall. You know, like a centipede. Centipedes are creepy and gross, and whenever you see them, you go, ugh. But if you make it 70 feet long, you're not going to be. You have a monster movie ready made. Giant snakes, giant anything, giant cockroaches, giant spiders, lots of giant spiders, etc., etc., etc. The most famous of these is Gojira, Godzilla for us Americans. Gojira, a little lizard that got exposed to radiation and became a fire-breathing, city, Tokyo-destroying monster. That category mistake is it's of abnormal size. Monsters are naturally big, giant, or magnified. I just thought of, what is it from Princess Bride? The RUSs? Rodents of unusual size? ROUSs. Yes. Those were, the movie anyway, I remember the movie. They weren't creepy, they were sort of goofy more than anything, but yeah, they had some creepiness to them. If you were to make it into a horror movie, obviously Princess Bride wasn't, but if you made it into a horror movie, you could just make them a lot worse, and a lot bigger, and you'd have some fun stuff with that. There's lots of giant spiders. King Kong's another, probably as famous as Godzilla. Not so much monstery. King Kong was never as monstery as some of these other ones. Godzilla became an anti-hero and then later a hero in the later movies, fighting off other giant monsters. So eventually he wasn't even a monster himself, he was the hero. But there's many other examples. Well, how about this? Big ass spider. This is one that's actually coming out soon. I saw a preview for it the other day. It looks hilarious. Just a giant spider that's killing city. It looks pretty ridiculous, and it is pretty ridiculous. It's a horror comedy, so they're definitely playing with making. They know they're being a little ridiculous on purpose, even. Another giant monster was tarantula, which I think, according to Wikipedia, I think was Clint Eastwood's acting debut as a fighter pilot. I did just do an internet search to see how many Attack of the Giant whatever, and then I came up what came up with that. Attack of the Giant Leeches, Attack of the Giant Woman, Attack of the Giant Squid, Attack of the Giant Gila Monster, Attack of the Giant Spider, Attack of the Giant Crabs, Attack of the Giant Ants, Attack of the Giant I don't know what that crab monsters, I think. Attack of the Giant Tomatoes, which is probably Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, and Attack of the Giant Louie, which is a comedy sketch that I did look up today, and it's weird. I think it has something to do with something I don't understand. An inside joke that I'm not a party to. Happens from time to time. So things being really big when they're not supposed to be big and they're frigging huge, it's a magnification monster. It's a magnification. That's a category mistake. It's a normal sized thing to, so big that it's no longer it's impure. Interstitiality is what causes impurity, our feelings of impurity. If it's a small little gross thing and it's become huge, and it's a little gross thing, it's between categories or groups. It's cockroaches are supposed to be in the small category, or spiders are supposed to be in the small category. When they are in the gigantic category, that's impurity. Snakes, anaconda would be one, or what's it called? From the second Harry Potter, that had giant spiders in it too, come to think of it. I think it's more Massification, though. We'll get to that one too. But come on, Drew. I know you know it. Basilisk. Good job, Drew. Giant snake. giant super poison snake with deadly eyes, but let's skip that one. Another example I had was Meg. I did talk about Meg yesterday. It's the prehistoric shark that's super, super big. Bigger than a whale, big shark that eats lots of people. Not that sharks are necessarily in the small category, but they aren't in the bigger than whale category that's naturally big. You get the gist. Magnification is very easy to understand. Quite simple. You blow something up to huge giant proportions, and it's a monster. And it becomes impure. Here's the example that turns the genre of magnification on its head. It's Richard Matheson, and Richard Matheson is, as you should probably know, is one of the modern masters. Richard Matheson's The Incredible Shrinking Man. This is the movie version. It's also a good movie. The gist of it is a guy gets exposed to some sort of chemical at work, and then he goes out on a boat and he becomes exposed to some sort of radiation on a boat. And the combination of these two things, or some weird pesticide on the boat, and then he gets exposed to radiation at work. That's what it is. And the combination of these two things leads to him shrinking. Like an inch a month? Or 2 inches a month or something like that? 2 inches a week? It doesn't matter what the rate is, obviously, And at first he doesn't notice, and then, then he notices that his wife doesn't have to, or his wife notices that she didn't have to go on tiptoes to kiss him as he was leaving. Oh, almost dropped my hot water. Well, it's lukewarm now. It wouldn't have hurt, but would have made a mess, or got me wet, which would be good. Good call, good catch. Wrenched my finger a bit. Sorry. Whoa. Anyway, pardon me. He notices that his wife notices that she didn't have to step on tippy toes to kiss him while he was going out to work. A couple weeks later, or however long it was later, he notices that he has to step on tippy toes to kiss his wife when he's off to work. He goes to the doctor. Doctor says, "You're perfectly healthy, except you're shrinking," which isn't helpful. No one's able to cure him. He keeps shrinking, getting shorter every so often, blah, blah, blah. After a while, things start feeling threatening to him. Let's have this up, so I'm not just gesticulating and you're watching me doing that. Pardon me. So, how long does it take for kids to be threatening? If you're getting very, very short, how long does it take till the house cat is what chased him into from the dollhouse he was living in, which was, he's already emasculated and he's going through all this drama type stuff, and then the cat actually chases him, trying to eat him because he's mouse-sized apparently, from his dollhouse that he's living in into the basement, and of course he shrinks further and no one can find him in the basement, and no one even takes a look for him in the basement. They just assume that the cat got him. And then he's still shrinking. He has to fight other stuff, culminating in... Does it show it on here? It doesn't. Well, he's got a needle in his hand. it was the special effects of the movie. I think it was early '60s. Oh, do I still have that? Oh, I do. Hold on a second. Um, 1957 is the movie. Wow. Okay. 1957 is the movie. So, and then the book was a little bit before that. So, you see, it's sort of Harryhausen-esque special effects, being quite early. But as you can see, he's got a needle in his hand, or a pin, and he uses that to fight and beat a spider who was attacking him. And of course, giant spider, comparatively speaking, since he's shrinking and you're the one identifying with him, is a giant spider, even though it's not. It's a normal-sized spider, you're just tiny. And, the spider's going at it with pincers and the legs and whatever, and is trying to eat him, and he fights him off. And he keeps shrinking, so, I mean, even then, he's still shrinking, and I'm not going to tell you the ending. I'm not going to ruin the ending for you, but it's cool. Anyway, if you're Carroll, the monster is the man, the person you're identifying with. The horrific things is him. He's the impurity, and he's the monster. He is being not believed to exist now according to contemporary science. Men don't shrink to size smaller than a house cat, or smaller than a spider. That's not something contemporary science believes in. But in the movie, he's not, as far as how we're feeling towards him, the spider's the monster, the cat is to a lesser extent the monster, and it's still a cat, and we don't feel impure, like insane sensations about the cat, but we do about the spider. So there's no way that Carroll can call this a horror book, and of course, even now it says fascinating adventure, so he'd call it an adventure story, and he's kind of right, but, if you twisted it in your head a little bit more, making it darker, it would be a horror story, even further. Pardon me. It's fighting the spiders, fighting whatever it is. Its impurity is the spider's impurity is what we experience because we are identifying with the character. But I keep wanting to call the character from another Matheson book. No, don't do it. Like, it's not his name. I don't remember what his name is. I should have looked it up. Oh well. So Carroll would say that if anything, he's the monster, and it's not really a horror book to begin with. It's an adventure story, and I don't necessarily buy it. I guess see his point because it's sort of more adventure-y. But that's sort of, it could be turned if it were like magic spell sort of thing. Instead, like deviant monster, making him shrink. Sorry, I'm getting weird ideas. Like thinner, except smaller. Which that's the idea that ran through my head, so just ignore that. It's just me rambling. Then it would, I could see it being less adventure-y if you were to plot it a certain way, and seeing it be more horror-y. It wouldn't be as good a story, but it could be more convincing as a horror. But Noel Carroll would still call the character, the shrinking man, the monster, if anything, because he's the only unnatural thing there. He's the only thing that science does not believe exists. Enough about magnification monsters, or magnification interstitiality category mistake. Let's go on to massification. Massification is also quite easy to understand. It's a horde, a mass, a plague of creatures in an unnatural quantity, most often working cooperatively to an unnatural degree. If you see any one of those movies with thousands upon thousands of spiders working together to attack people and, eat people, and, or thousands and thousands of snakes, thousands and thousands of rats, thousands, oh, that's a good one. Let me pop that on my notes so I don't forget it. Thousands of cockroaches, thousands of centipedes. Anything creepy, anything small, working together to attack people and be monstrous. If you have enough of them together, they become creepy. Classic example here. I don't know if you guys remember this one, arachnophobia. I don't remember. Who was this? No, I don't remember who was in it. I remember John Goodman was in it. I don't remember any of the directors. Is it Zemeckis? I think it might have been, but I'm not 100% positive. Also horror comedy-ish, but lots of spiders working together. They're normal-sized spiders for the most part. I think they might be slightly poisonous, or more poisonous than usual, or something along those lines. But the fact is, the point that they're all working together, and there's lots of them. That's the big deal with them. They're a horde, a mass, a plague. Second example, Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, or if you like, there's in the bottom corner under Suzanne Plachette, it'll say, based on the short story by Daphne du Maurier. Another spider example, Aragog and his family from also from Harry Potter 2, Chamber of Secrets. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of small spiders. There's hundreds of man-sized spiders, and Aragog and the wife. I think the wife was mentioned in the books. I don't think it was shown in the movie. I don't know if it was shown in the books either, for that matter. But Aragog, which is the size of a freaking hill, which is the big spider, which doesn't do any of the attacking, but the man-sized spiders do attacking, and one would expect the little sized spiders were at least in on it. So that's a combination magnification, massification. They made spiders man-sized, or bigger than man-sized, and then they put a crap ton of them together. You'll see magnification and massification fairly often in combination. Oh, The Birds was, of course... I didn't mention it. The Birds is a massification of birds working together to attack people. I think most people are aware of what The Birds is, but let's just make everything plain clear. The Birds, surprisingly, is about birds. Oh, goodness gracious. In Creepshow, the movie George Romero and Stephen King collaboration, E.G. Martin plays Upson Pratt. God, I just love Stephen King's names. He is the best name maker in the business. Shirley Pasternak, Laura D. Lewisian. He's so good. Oh my gosh. Danny Torrance, Carrie White. Just names. Names say so much. Upson Pratt. E.G. Marshall plays Upson Pratt. E.G. Martin plays Upson. E.G. Marshall or Martin? I forgot what it was. I have Martin in my notes, and now I can't remember what the actor's name was. E.G. Marshall. It's got to be E.G. Marshall. Why do I have Martin down? It is Marshall. Oh, for God's sakes. Marshall. Fixing my notes, even though I already said it and screwed it up. As Upson Pratt in Creepshow. He's the Scrooge-type character. He's a skinflint, like... I want to say spinster, and that's totally not the right word. He's a Scrooge. He's a money-grubbing Scrooge type. And he's... The elevator goes out in his apartment, his penthouse apartment, and they're trying to fix it. And he calls all these people cockroaches and whatever, and all of a sudden these cockroaches start coming up through everywhere. So he sprays them with the bug spray and he smashes them with his shoe, and but there's still more coming. There's still more coming, and there seem to be getting more of them. They're just like on a natural degree. It's a horde, a mass, a plague of cockroaches. Until poor Upson Pratt, who never hurt a fly. He's a jackass. He was a complete dick. So you don't feel sorry for him at all. No, I'm just getting confused. Ends up drowning, or one assumes he ends up drowning in cockroaches. Cool stuff. Anyway. Yeah, until they overtake him. I think Joe Hill was playing in buckets of cockroaches during the filming. I think I did see I think it's in one of these interview books that Stephen King's son was like wanted to be covered in the cockroaches or something. And then of course he became a horror writer when he was growing up. So I don't know if it's true, but it's a good story. Okay, rats. How about rats? Rats in King's original version of Salem's Lot attack the doctor, who's one of the vampire hunters. Pardon me. And they swarm him. This was taken out in the final draft because it was too gross, and the editor convinced Stephen King to take it out. But Stephen King talks about it actually in Danse Macabre. There we go. Danse Macabre. And I think in Feast of Fear? No, Kingdom of Fear. Kingdom of Fear, he talks about his bears, the 10 bears, 10 things that scare him, and rats are one of them. One of the vampire hunters goes down the stairs, and all the rats from the junkyard have moved into the bottom of the stairs, and they swarm him. They go up his shirt, they go down his shirt, they go in his hair, they crawl, scratch his face, they go in his mouth, bite his tongue, and choke him. And the rest of them take him down and gnaw him to death. Boom! Scary stuff. And of course, Graveyard Shift from Night Shift. Or the movie version of Graveyard Shift, I suppose. I haven't seen the movie version. Where there's evolution of rats under a mill, and there's all different kinds, and there's millions of them, and yeah, lots and lots of them. Or Willard, or Ben. Ben was the sequel to Willard. There's a new Willard and an old Willard, and there was an old Ben. That was supposedly one of the worst movies ever made. I didn't see it. But rats. What do I have? I think that's My examples of that, if you combine magnification and massification together, you get stuff like big swarms, swarms of big things, like Aragog kids chasing the enchanted car in Harry Potter or whatever. Not that it's horror, but it's certainly suspenseful. It's not a horror book, but it is a suspenseful, even frightening thing. Some that don't work. I had Night of the Lepus down, which is giant bunnies and a swarm of giant bunnies. But they're bunnies, so it doesn't work, and it's one of those weird B movies that were bad. There's Phase 4. That was a massification of ants. Prophecy was a magnification of everything, like dolphin-sized trout in a stream, and it was about, pollution. Not the what's his name prophecy, but the other prophecy, the 70s prophecy, the one talked about in Stephen King's, which we'll talk about later. There's plenty. So yeah, that's magnification and massification. And of course, for all the other types, if you have, a fission monster or a fusion monster or even a metonymy monster, but metonymy is the weird one, so it doesn't really mix with others. If you make them, 50 feet tall, they're magnification and fusion. Like Cthulhu, which is as big as is certainly gigantic, big as a mountain or whatever. Cyclopean. And of course he was a fusion monster, which we're going to talk about Cthulhu tomorrow. Or you have we add a bunch of things, like if you have 1 million of whatever monsters, fission monsters like werewolves, if you had 1 million werewolves, or 100 werewolves, you'd have Twilight. No, bad Drew. Oh, that's so not cool. All the jokes. Oh, all the jokes. Anyway. So, you can add, if you have a massification of things, you can have a magnification of things you can have both. You can have, 150-foot werewolves. It'd be an awful movie. Don't do it. But you could do it. It'd just be bad. Yeah. I don't think it works with metonymy. Metonymy is another thing you can add on to. The M's you can... That's funny. The M's you can add to the other ones. Well, fission... I think we'll talk more about that later. For now, folks, next time we're going to be talking about fusion monsters, which you could probably figure out is categories fusing together. Pardon me. A fusion. Right. Okay, folks. Until next time, my name is Drew. I'll see you next time. Have a great night. And became a fire-breathing, city, Tokyo-destroying monster. That category mistake is it's of abnormal size. Monsters are naturally big, giant, or magnified. I just thought of, what is it from Princess Bride? The RUSs? Rodents of unusual size? ROUSs. Yes. those were the movie anyway. I remember the movie. They weren't creepy. They were sort of goofy more than anything, but yeah, they had some creepiness to them. If you were to make it into a horror movie, obviously Princess Bride wasn't, but if you made it into a horror movie, you could just make them a lot worse and a lot bigger, and you'd have some fun stuff with that. There's lots of giant spiders. King Kong's another, probably as famous as Godzilla. Not so much. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Horror Analysis with me, Drew, your lovely and talented host. Alright, back to this. Alright. Alright, we're continuing with our discussion of monsterness. The first topic on there. What it means to be a horror, you need a monster, according to Carroll, which at the moment is what we're working through, and he's the best at this sort of thing for talking about what the most inclusive theory is. Carroll's. He has problems that he has to deal with, but his theory is very good. So we're going to talk more about that. Of course, he's defining monster, any being not believed to exist now according to contemporary science. He also needs the monster to be a threat, and he needs it to be impure. Purity is through the category mistake is through these are the category mistake types, rather than monster types. This distinction will be important when I talk about fusion, because I can't get through my thick skull even now that the fusion monsters are certain things. We'll talk about that next time, because fusion monster is going to get a whole video because it's way bigger than this. I'm doing 2 in one video today, and tomorrow I'm going to be doing fusion monsters, and that's going to be a longer video than today's video. The easiest two to understand are magnification monsters and massification monsters. The first 2 of the 3 M's. So 2 F's and 3 M's. That's how if you wanted a mnemonic to remember them, 2 F's and 3 M's. Magnification and massification are the easiest 2. We're going to jump into the easiest of them all, magnification. Magnification monsters are see, I have it there. The magnification category mistake is monsters are naturally big, giant, or magnified. Take any creepy, gross thing and make it 20 stories tall. Like a centipede. Centipedes are creepy and gross, and whenever you see them, you go, ugh. But if you make it 70 feet long, you're not going to be. You have a monster movie ready made. Giant snakes, giant anything, giant cockroaches, giant spiders, lots of giant spiders, etc., etc., etc. The most famous of these is Gojira, Godzilla for us Americans. Gojira, a little lizard that got exposed to radiation. Impurity is through interstitiality, which means being between categories. It's a category mistake, as we talked about last time. So the kind of category mistake that the monster is tells what kind of a monster it is. It's a monster, it's impure, because of the category mistake it has. The biologies of horror section talk about what kind of category mistakes there are. fusion, fission, magnification, massification, and metonymy. Fusion monsters, fission monsters, magnification monsters, massification monsters, and metonymy monsters. Today we're going to go over the easiest two. I'm going to try to reiterate Carroll's point is that the monsters are not fusion monsters or fission monsters or whatever. The impure